I'm Betty Swan. Welcome to our show, Wisdom in the Night, where you get help for those tough decisions in your life. Tonight I have a great guest. She's an author, executive assistant, and a nanny. Welcome, Galen Jernegan.
Hello.
It's so great to have you here. I think people are going to love hearing your story, everything that goes on in your life. So let's get started.
Great.
Tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, about your family, etc.
Sure. So I am from Oklahoma. I'm an Okie from Muskogee. And I grew up with, there's 9 total kids, and my mom is a saint. She had us all in 10 years. The last are twin boys, and we range from, right now it's 32 to 22. And there's 5 girls, 4 boys, and I love it so much.
Are y'all really close?
Yeah, we are. We talk throughout the day, and we're spread around the world, so it's off and on.
You mean you talk to all 9 every day?
Everybody in a group message. Everyone keeps up with babies and nieces and nephews and pictures and what we're doing, so.
Well, what was it like growing up in a house of 9?
Yeah, so I never had my own room until I was a senior in high school, so that was unique. And we grew up on a farm. I had pigs, and we had goats and cows, and it was fun. I spent most of my time outside, and we were able to travel as a family just in a big white 15-passenger van, so.
Now, why were you in a 15-passenger van? Was that your home car, or?
Yes, people thought my dad was a bus driver. So we would go to McDonald's for lunch, and they would say, "Do you want the bus driver's discount?" And he was like, "No, they're my children. I'm their father, you know." So it's just.
So did your parents want to have 9 children?
They did, just based off what they'd been through and their journey. They just really wanted a big family, and they would have had more, but my mom had complications almost.
They would have had more than 9?
Yeah, probably, but she had complications the last, they were 9 weeks early, my twin brothers, and liver hemorrhage and just a lot of issues.
Oh, gosh,
so
but she's okay now.
She's great. She's great. So.
Now, what did your dad do?
He is a worship and singer-songwriter. I know he's been doing that over 30 years now. So
is his name Dennis Jernegan?
Yes, Dennis Jernegan.
Oh, the Dennis Jernegan.
Yes, the Dennis Jernegan.
Wow, and a lot of songs that people sing today, he wrote them?
Yeah, so one of his famous ones is You Are My All in All, and We Will Worship the Lamb of Glory, and there's a few others, but those are his main ones.
Do you remember him writing those songs when you were growing up?
I know You Are My All in All was written the year I was born. So that's kind of a fun memory. And then he started mid-'80s really, and then through until now. So
yeah, well, now did you travel with him? Did your whole family go?
Yeah, we were homeschooled for a little while, so my mom would pack us all in the van, and we'd put a trailer, and we were lucky enough to go with my dad, and so we'd go to large arenas, to small churches, to TV studios, you know, and sing even with him. And
oh, so you sing?
Yeah, we all do.
The whole family?
They called us the Singing Von Jernigans.
That's what I was getting ready to say. You're like the Von Trapp.
We knew the whole Sound of Music lived in our home. Oh, yes.
Really?
We loved
Do Re Mi?
Yes.
You could do Do Re Mi? Oh, how cute. Well, what was that like for you growing up with a famous parent?
I know it's kind of, people probably I don't know, it felt normal. But I did notice, like, there was a season where we couldn't go anywhere with really people noticing, you know, who my dad was. And so I kind of learned just to be patient, and we would always be the last to leave. There's always a line of people, you know, wanting to talk to my dad. But so I guess I just learned a lot of patience, and we were occupied with each other as friends. You know, we played, and before technology, you know,
so you just kind of got along with your brothers and sisters while your dad was doing his thing.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever feel intimidated by it?
I don't think so. He always if we didn't want to perform or anything, he wouldn't ever like pressure us. He'd give us the opportunity. But I had a brother. He would come every now and then. Like he'd always be there with us, but he ended up just like, Dad, I don't want to do this. So he respected him enough to just say like, it's okay, son, you can sit. And while some of us, who do want to be up there, like.
All right.
So.
Well, so there's probably people watching this show because it goes all over the world. It goes to 166 countries and all over the boroughs of New York. There are people watching that maybe they've had a famous parent and maybe they've struggled with it. Like, how do I get to be who I am? Because I don't want to be famous.
Right.
Like your brother,
Right.
I don't want to be famous.
Right.
Or maybe I do want to be famous, but I want to make it on my own. I don't want to live with your name.
Right.
What kind of advice would you give people for that?
Well, I guess I could maybe answer, because there was almost two questions, like how to be famous or how to get your own name out there. And your identity, really. I feel like if you're proud of where you came from and really owning and giving yourself the confidence, like, I can do this. And so you can, like my dad, he's like, Galen, don't be afraid to use my name if you need to. And so that's been a thing I've kind of like, okay, I can do that. And it's almost like a network. Use
So
that
like
as a network.
when to use the name and when to not.
And yeah, there's sometimes it really is helpful, and I think it's okay to use that, but I don't ride that either.
Right, there's a difference, right?
I don't use that. I don't throw that out there. Like I probably wouldn't even said his name if you didn't say it, So I try to respect my dad, try to respect where he's been, and I do try to create a name for myself.
So what would you tell somebody who absolutely doesn't want anything to do with it? They're just not a person that wants to be in entertainment or whatever.
Yeah, I say if you just communicate that to your family and to your dad, if you might feel pressured, like, no, this is I want to go this route. I really respect you, what you're doing, but it's not me. So I feel like if you're confident and if you speak up, I think that's really important, is to just share your heart and where you want to be.
So how did you get your own personal walk with the Lord? I mean, I know a lot of times when you grow up when a family has a lot of Christian activity, they just kind of grow into it. But at some point, it has to become your own personal faith, your own personal walk with Jesus, right?
Yes.
How'd you get that?
So I accepted the Lord at a young age, and then I always just had an extreme, like, knowing, like, God is God. I had little doubt in that area, and I know that's not the case for a lot of people. But then gradually, as you grow up and do kind of form your own, like, different thoughts and different ideas, like, and questions, like, who is God? I took a gap year after high school, and that's where I was just so in between. I was like, is college a thing? I'm really trying to hear God. Where should I be? And then I took a step back and actually got a mentor, a good family friend who my parents really just trusted, they were like, please, it's okay, go ahead. That's good to get counsel from other people. So I met with her on a weekly basis, and she really just helped encourage that those questions with God, and gave me things to study and books to read, and we would just chat over tea. Like, we would just have tea for hours a day, and I would, go from laughing to weeping, but it's really just the spiritual journey that whole year for me, and that kind of set the tone for those next.
And that's still going with you now?
Yeah, I still keep in contact with her, and there's other people in my life that I've brought in, and I really feel it's just so important to have someone.
Well, what did you think about taking a gap year? Are you glad you did?
I'm so, looking back, at first I felt like judged almost by people, and it was an interesting feeling, because people who claimed to love me just said, you'll never go to college, you'll never, you're missing your opportunity, you're never going to go back. And you're just like, thanks for believing in me.
right.
But I knew there was just, knowing myself now, I was listening to the Holy Spirit. I was just, there are things I needed to work on, things I needed to heal, things I needed to, and now, like, I wouldn't have been here doing this job in this city if I wouldn't have taken a gap year, by far. So I know it was definitely.
So you would recommend that then to people?
If you're feeling that, I feel like, and I knew I'd go eventually or do something eventually, so I wasn't quitting, I wasn't giving up. I just knew I needed that time.
year.
And I think that's so okay. And again, it's just about, like, communicating that to people and letting them know, please be with this, in this
So
with
what's your
me.
walk with God like now? Is it good?
Oh yeah, it's good. It's still a process. It's always going to be, and that's, I think, just always a misconception people have is like, oh, if I get to this point, I'll be okay. But I think it's a constant journey you're going to have with the Lord, and it's been an amazing time. I keep going deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, you know, some people say I have a hard time knowing when God's talking to me. Do you ever have that?
Yeah, sometimes I do. But again, it's taking the time to listen is the challenge, especially in a really busy world and having a lot of things come your way of what to
Can you hear
believe
him better when it's quiet?
Definitely. Yeah, and I'm a singer like my dad, and that's my mom. If I'm talking to her, she's like, Galen, have you worshiped today? Have you sang today? Because that's really how I do hear the Lord. And
While you're singing?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's just it's a neat, intimate time, you know, with God. So it's like a prayer almost. It's kind of like, you know, David in the Bible. That's what he did.
Do you ever write songs?
All the time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you think you got that from your dad, or do you think that that was just God anointing you to be a songwriter?
Sure. I think probably a little, it was influenced by both. Because one thing my dad says is he's like, I'm not a songwriter, I'm a song receiver. And
Oh, wow.
so I do feel like there are moments when you can get in that lane of like, oh, I'll write a song, you know, but then there are those moments you're like, oh, God, you gave this to me, you know? So it's a really neat.
Have you published any?
I have a few that I did in my gap year. So there are a solid few I have out there, but I've written so many and my voice is, you know,
How
developed.
many do you think you've written?
Oh gosh, probably a few hundred. Just,
Wow.
yeah.
Do you ever sing them to yourself?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, sometimes I'll go back and like, oh, okay, that was a neat time and I needed to hear that again, you know, so I
Well,
do.
that's great. Well, what do you think God's purpose for your life is, His plan for your life? Do you have any idea?
I definitely know it's with people. I definitely feel closer to Him when I'm encouraging people or loving people, whether it is serving them. That's what I do. Part of my job as an assistant and a nanny. I feel so good letting people know, like, I've got whatever you need, I'll handle it, you know, and just being a few steps ahead. I love serving. So,
Well, I can tell you as a person that does a lot, because I do a whole lot with my life besides this TV show, there is nobody like somebody who is in your life for that purpose. Oh, my goodness. You can do so much more if you have a person covering your back and watching out for things that you don't have to keep up
Right.
with. There's just nothing like it. It's hard without one,
Right.
and it's great with one.
yeah.
So do you think that's your purpose? You think,
No, I'm still young and
how old are you?
25.
Yeah.
So
Well, let me just ask you something. Let's just stop right there. You're 25. Let's say someone is looking at you that's 19, 18, 19. So to them, you're old.
yeah, I feel
You're
old
really-
sometimes.
Well, but what kind of advice would you give someone who says, well, I can't take a gap year.
Right.
I've got to
Right.
get on to school. I've got a long program ahead of me, like medical or whatever. What kind of advice would you say to someone about how to find their purpose and how to get in it and stay in it?
Good question. I would probably say, if you don't have this already, like for me, it was getting mentors, different people around me who could speak into my life. And even if like medical, like I'm not a medical person, but if you're in that, have people in there like encouraging you and keeping you accountable to your dream and also to your spiritual walk as well. If that can be really challenging in school. You know, I've been to college. I know what it's like, even in a Christian university. So it's so good to have an accountability in that.
So did you have just one mentor? Did you have more than one?
I had multiple. I would consider my parents mentors for sure. I'm very close to them. And then my mentor, Joanna. And then she's younger than me, but she's wise beyond. You wouldn't think as a 23-year-old, but she really is. I've heard a lot of people speak in my life, and she's one of the top pastors. She's a youth pastor now, but she's one of the top people, and her words are inspirational. So she,
You know, Galen, that is really interesting because I'll bet you anything people watching this think your mentor has to be a whole lot older. And you're saying you can even have a mentor younger than you.
yeah, I think so. Because we all have a different walk and experience. And if you knew her story and where her family came from, God has really used that for his glory. So it's really neat to see their whole family just.
Maybe that's why she's so wise, because she's been through so much.
Definitely.
Yeah, I went through a lot of hard stuff growing up, and there just seemed to be a maturity in me that maybe people that were my age didn't have. But they also hadn't been through what I'd been through.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what kind of challenges have you encountered?
I would probably say, because I grew up, I was the good Christian girl. I loved to follow rules. And then, so high school was okay. I dealt with, a little bit of a mean girl issues, but that was, I could deal with that. But then I think through the years, it's kind of been more about like the pressure I put on myself and the anxiety that is created up in that. And no one puts that on me. It's just something I've, working through. And some days it's great and some days it's really hard. And you get in that bubble of isolation. I really feel like that's where the enemy gets you.
Yeah, what kind of thoughts, when you're in that bubble of isolation, what kind of thoughts hit you?
It's like, you can't do it, or you're not good enough, or you're not educated enough, or you're not smart. Just those little things that like keep you stuck. And
Do you think those thoughts are from the devil, or do you think they're from yourself, or both?
probably a little both, because your thoughts create almost like a pattern, and that kind of sticks with you. But I definitely am. It's always been a process of like, okay, what's the truth? And just like putting that in, and it's still, even today, I'm working through that, and it's a journey, but I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna like push through it, and because that's not who I am, and I know I'm a person. I do want to live my dreams and not have things.
Okay, so let's say you're in that funk, and how do you get yourself out of it?
Yeah, it's part of it is the singing, and sometimes because I'm too hard on myself, I'm like, no, I don't want to go there emotionally, because it can be hard, but that's exactly the place I need to be, is like worshiping and praying.
And that takes you out of it, doesn't it?
It really can, yeah, it does. And then also just like telling people, like I tell my parents, I'm like, listen, I need your prayer, I need your support, and that lifts it too, is like releasing that. So you don't keep
someone,
it. Yeah,
telling
because
someone.
like when you keep it, it like builds up. And
Also, when you keep it inside yourself, don't you think it seems bigger than it is?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Galen, one time I decided, okay, I'm so hard on myself. And my husband said to me, you are harder on yourself than you are on other people. And so I thought, well, what's wrong with me? Why am I like that? So I decided to ask a room full of high achievers, how many of you in here are hard on yourself? Did you know every single one said, I am.
Yeah.
There wasn't one that didn't.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so why are we like that? You know what the answer was? We're all high achievers.
Yeah.
And so we don't accept less than our very best. And if we do what we think is less than our best, we don't like it about ourselves, and it makes us think, I'm not doing it right. I'm not, So really, you're in actually a very good place to have that going on in your life.
Yeah.
Because you're not saying, I have these thoughts about myself because I had a mean parent that talked down to me, that wasn't supportive, maybe was even abusive. You're not saying that. And there are people watching it that they do have that because they heard all of their life.
Right.
You're nothing. You won't amount to anything. But you're not talking about that. You had people supportive of you, wanting to help you, willing to let you get another mentor beside themselves, and yet you still struggle with that. I think that's very important. So I need you to think about what kind of a wisdom thought you would tell someone who's struggling with that right now, watching this show tonight. They're watching. What would you say?
Probably say you're not alone. There are people, it could be from the same background or just someone completely opposite, but you it's so good to like give yourself a good community of people. And I know that can be afraid if you are physically alone, like you don't have friends, you are separated from the family who is, taken advantage of you, abused you. And so coming to a community and finding like a good solid church, and then telling the pastor, like, this is where I've been and this is where I want to go and I need help doing that. How do I do it?
Oh, wow, that's great. Well, now let me ask you, another part of your career is an executive assistant. So you're an executive assistant to someone who's in a big high-profile job?
So I work almost for both the husband and the wife, and the husband is a pastor of multiple churches, and then the wife is a speaker and author, and she travels and writes and consults as well. So yes, definitely.
So you do work for both of them, and then you're a nanny to them too?
Yeah, for their kids.
Yeah? How many kids do they have?
They have 4 grown sons and then 2 little girls who are 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And do you take care of the 3? Oh, and you love it?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Do you feel like having that large family prepared you for that?
Yeah. When I told them that, they're like, oh, good.
Yeah.
It definitely puts people at peace because I did help. I remember helping with my younger siblings and we always had to be humble. You couldn't just like expect everything to come to you. So I learned a lot through that.
Well, if someone wanted to be a really good executive assistant, what do you see are the main qualities that are needed? What would you say?
I would probably say one would be patience because...
Really, that's interesting.
Patience because you will be the last to leave, so you need to learn to wait, but also learning to wait. Just timing could be, because to me, probably person in my position, like we're used to like deadlines and time, but sometimes you work with dreamers and dreamers don't always have a timeline. So it's good to like learn and adjust and you'll learn like their style and observe. I feel like observation is probably another one too, is like look at where the need is and fill that before it's even like my parents were, they're like, do things before you're told. So like clean up before you're told, before we have to tell you. And so those things kind of get ingrained and you're like, okay, I'll help my boss before they even need it.
So you look for things. And do you feel like you kind of have an ability to see what's needed? The reason I'm asking that question is there is a spiritual gift that God gives out of many gifts that he gives, and it's called the gift of helps. And I've observed that people that have that right there that you just described is the one identifying characteristic I've seen. They have an ability, without you telling them anything, to see either what is needed right now or what is going to be needed. And they kind of go ahead and have that ready in case you need it.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
That's exactly.
You do that? Yeah, I can remember one time being in Russia, and a woman with that gift came up to me and said, Betty, what would you think about having these little bracelets that you could explain the plan of salvation to your children? Do you think these women would want that? I said, I think it's a great idea. She said, well, I happen to bring 500 just in case.
That's so great.
And I went, oh my gosh, yes. We passed them out and the women rushed the stage. They were gone in just a matter of minutes.
Wow.
But see, I would have never thought to have that. I would have never thought to say, could you get it and have it ready? But she did that. So do you see yourself doing things like that?
Yes, I do. Even if there's like projects that need to be done, I see it before I have a vision almost of just like, if it's unorganized, I see it organized, or I can see the end result almost, and then I can help lay out like these things need to be done for this to happen almost. So I definitely
Well, do you think it's preparing you for something else?
I do. I definitely feel like it's even just working with different people I've been able to meet and observe again of just like different behaviors, different leadership styles. I definitely feel like it's going to just prepare me for my next step, whatever that may be.
But now you're an author also?
Yeah, and that's just one thing I've always wanted to do, but then I felt almost inadequate that's the one thing I'm trying to get over. I've always enjoyed writing, creative writing, songwriting, but right now I'm definitely trying to write a book. It's been almost a 2-year process of.
It's longer than you think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard, especially if I've never done it before. And I ask, and my dad's an author too, so I'm trying to pull from him, but our styles are a little different, but it's still, it's fun to kind of do that together as well.
I used to wonder when people said, took me 10 years to write this book, took me 8 years to write this book, and I think, why can't you just sit down and write it? It's not.
hard.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Well, now, is there anything else you would like to do?
Oh gosh. I would want to have a family. I've always had a vision of working with somebody, my husband, whether that be in ministry or something. I have that. It's not anytime soon, but it would be nice. I've just always had that idea, like that would be really neat. But I also love to travel, so I would love to travel more. And
now, do you want to have a lot of children?
not 9, not 9, but yeah, I could have like 3 or a couple kids. That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now you seem to me to be a person that has a lot of humor about you. So do you have a funny streak in you?
I can be pretty funny, I guess. If I need
And
to be.
are you kind of drawn to that and maybe developing that aspect of your life, or?
I don't know. Like some of it is, I've always wanted to be like with the writing, like a dream of mine would be to work with Jimmy Fallon. Even for a day, if I could walk by him and like hold the door for him, I would do that.
Okay, well, Jimmy Fallon, if you're watching, then here you go. Here's somebody that might be what you're looking for. I tell you, there is just nothing like young people. They're always, did you see how many ideas she had? And especially that one about the gap year. Have you thought about doing a gap year, and how would you do it? What would you do during that gap year? I believe this show tonight's got a lot for you to think about. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in. It wasn't an accident that you turned on the TV tonight. I hope you receive some wisdom and that you have a great rest of the night, whether you are going to sleep or you're going to work. I'll see you next time. Bye.